Alrighty then. Hey everybody, it's this week's Say Report. I'm your host, Sejan Sarwick, along with my host companion, Devin Decker.
Devin Decker! And
I
apparently
was gonna say,
Sejan
if he's still here.
has drank his own Kool-Aid. Alrighty then. Seriously, that's from last week. I didn't think we were bringing forward that to this week.
We never reference past weeks. We
have pretty solid continuity, but I also kind of felt like what last week stood for and meant was something that, like, we got it out of our systems. Never again will I talk with my buttocks.
No, that's just it, though, right? Is we are going to have to talk about Ace Ventura again, because I think we even have mentioned this in last week's recording, that really we have to look at all of '94 eventually, right? Like, so just, in the future, be a lookout for that. That is a promise that Say Report can and will keep.
I have some people disappointed that they have to wait until we're sick to hear us talk about more Jim Carrey movies from 1994.
Hey, look, there's going to be plenty of reasons to take vacation in the next few weeks here, so I am all ready to bank a new episode of that, because it was fun. It was fun to talk about that movie despite our feelings on it, and I think that is something that really actually I've been trying to figure out how I feel about the Oscars last night, Dev, and I think that's just it. Is I have come to terms with the fact that this year in movies was just fun. There was a lot of good stuff in movies this year. None of it felt like it was gonna, like, break ground, although I think that they proved me wrong last night, surprisingly. But overall, this year in cinema was just a damn good time.
I saw exactly 3 things from the Oscars last night.
All right.
Thing 1 was the Frozen 2 song performance, Into the Unknown, which was awesome.
Yeah,
like,
awesome.
I was watching TV, the show I was watching ended, and then there was the Oscars and that was happening. And awesome. Like, to have all the other women who sang that song around the world, like, on stage performing with Idina Menzel. I wanted to say Adele Nazim, but I couldn't. I wanted to give it its proper. But it's like, that was awesome. And it was so awesome that I'm like, I'm not going to watch any more of the Oscars because I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, no. I think you made the right choice. Dipping into the Oscars is like exactly where I'm at now, which is exactly what I was doing last night, right? Only came in for a couple of things myself, but you mentioned that there was a couple of other things.
So the couple of other things was, as it was getting close to 11, I felt compelled to put it on to see if I had to tape the show afterwards.
Okay.
Because, my parents are away. They weren't here for the Oscars. And I'm like, I really don't want to tape them. But it's like, you will tape the fucking Oscars for us. And I'm like, okay, I will tape the Oscars for you. Weird flex. Then also, they watched them last night. So I guess it's like, so they can chronicle and archive them. They can know exactly when Ray Romano said fuck. So I watched, because I just dipped in at that, I got to see Joker win Best Score, which that seemed cool to me as well. Again, I'm a sound guy. I care about music and all that. It's the first time I can remember there being an orchestral performance of all the nominees for score. And that seemed like a smart thing to do. Maybe not a smart thing to do when you're always trying to come in underestimate.
Yeah.
But it was so, that woman was having a great time conducting it, and to hear the music, to be in that room while that is happening, that has to have been awesome.
Yeah. No, and look, many things that you and I have talked about our feelings on Joker. There are many things about that movie that we do not approve of, but I got no problem with that score. It is a fantastic piece of music.
Yeah. It's one of the only things that kept me going, because of all the other things that we've expressed disinterest in.
Although you do have to point out that we did call it Joaquin Phoenix walking away with the actor, and then that movie getting almost nothing else except for that score Oscar, which should not be snubbed. But but basically exactly what we imagined was going to happen with this movie when all was said and done. And I'm glad that it didn't go beyond this, because I did not want to have to talk about the best picture of the year being that movie for the rest of our lives.
And then that's also strike 3. Well, that's rude, because it's not, but it's the third thing I saw was Parasite win.
Fuck yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was awesome.
And Jane Fonda's like eyes like light up when she saw that name on the
Yeah.
sheet. Yeah. Well, I
It
think she really thought she was about to have to give it to Joker. I think that was the feeling in the room from the little bit that I was really kind of watching with it not getting everything else. It was almost like the anticipation had been building up. So this must be it. This
it's
must be the
it's
thing.
that spotlight moment. It's that
Yeah,
moment where
yeah.
Spotlight didn't win anything else that it was nominated for, but then it rightly got Best Picture.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's yeah, and that's exactly what it is. I have a question for you before we go any further on this fun little adventure through the Oscars and how it affects us. What was the Best Picture last year?
The best picture of 2018.
Well,
Uh,
released 2018, but awarded in 2019. Yeah.
wasn't last year the whole Moonlight fiasco?
Nope.
Oh, that was
That's
2 years ago.
that was 3 years ago. That's yeah. So that's
I mean,
exactly.
you'd also I am a flawed I am a flawed audience for this question. I can't remember how old I am. So you're asking me
That's
to place
I
times in
understand. Yes,
something.
I get that. But so someone mentioned last night that remember when La La Land won Best Picture and then it was a mistake, and it got me thinking about that. And I wanted to make sure that I had my own personal timeline correct. And it turns out I did because that was 3 Oscars ago. Now 4 Oscars ago. But at the time it was 3 ago. And I didn't watch the one where Shape of Water won Best Picture. And the reason for that is I was asked to compete in an event as like an exhibition, and like it was great. I'm really glad I did that. But I've always been trying to figure out why the bloom went off the rose of the Oscars. And really, it has to be that Moonlight moment. Now, I wanted Moonlight to win everything. I fucking loved that movie.
Yeah.
But it truly demonstrated just how bullshit the award is in a lot
I mean,
of
yeah,
ways.
yeah, no, it definitely took the shine off of it, right? Like it made you realize that at the end of the day, everybody running this show is human, like you and me. I mean, it's the same feeling I have. I mean, it's the it's the same bittersweet feeling I'm having about like the Iowa caucuses right now. As somebody that tries to be involved in politics all the time, I'm really coming to terms with the fact that it doesn't fucking matter, and slowly becoming that like that like anarchic asshole in his basement screaming into a microphone because I'm just like, oh, humans make mistakes, and everybody involved in this process is just a human being. So like, and that's what it is for me. Is the magic of the Oscars is gone because it's no longer magical. It's all humans fucking up all the time.
Yeah, okay. So and that's it. And then like so that seeing the man behind the curtain has
Hmm.
really like made it, that like I'll drop in, I'll see, I'll take an interest in what won, but then the fact that I did not know what won Best Picture last year.
Yeah.
And, of the two of us, I'm the archivist. That's something I should know. It was Green Book.
Right. Yeah. 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 The weird upset because fucking Fairly Brothers. Well, it wasn't a Fairly Brothers film, but like I remember the entire time thinking I can't even believe this is at the Oscars, and then it won. I do remember now that you say it.
Yeah. And that's just that moment where like my father has been trying to get me to watch Green Book with him for like the last 3 months. And and any other Best Picture movie that I've never seen, I would jump at that. I would watch Out of Africa right now if someone was like, "Hey, Out of Africa," I'm like, "Yeah, I've never seen it. I'll watch Out of Africa." So the fact that I have just glossed over on it really does demonstrate to me how little I care about them anymore.
Yeah,
And
I had that deep dark moment, all probably during the Oscars last year. But I've come back to realizing that like I do want to know and I do want to be part of the celebration, but I don't want to be as invested as I was, 5, 6 years ago, where we're like I was going to Oscar parties and like printing out nomination sheets and like and doing all sorts of like silly games around it and all that stuff. I don't
making
care.
sure I saw everything.
Right,
Like
right. Like
traveling.
like
I think I traveled 2 hours once to see one of the films so that I could see
yeah.
it before the Oscars. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, so there's that piece of me that has just kind of slowly come back around to kind of enjoying the pomp and circumstance a little bit.
Good. I just wanted to. It was very freeing to realize what it was for me that made them not matter as much as they did. And like, don't get me wrong, I had fun recording like our Oscar specials where we poured over them and had fun with it. And I had fun doing it before, but I'm like really happy that like that's not part of my life anymore.
Yeah, man. No, I agree. I agree entirely. You know, it's the same deal with like on a larger scale. When we were in college, right? Like we used to go to 2 to 4 movies a week, right? And I know that you and Dale still kind of keep up that tradition, like with each other, but we used to go with like groups of like 6 to 8 people every week, right? I don't think that I don't think I could get 6 to 8 people to go to a movie once a year with me anymore. You know, you just can't do that. And I don't feel the desire to go out every week to a movie. You know, like I just don't have that in me anymore. And it's not that I don't love movies anymore. It's not that I don't feel like movies are still like an important part of what I do and shape what I do all the time. It's this idea that like I don't feel the need to consume them in that particular way anymore. Much like the Oscars, I don't feel the need to keep track of them in that particular way anymore. I've got my own way of doing things, you know?
Well, meanwhile, I feel like if I don't see a movie in the theater, I'll probably never see it. Watching movies at home has lost all of its appeal to me. And that's very strange to me because I tried to watch Highwaymen on Netflix and I was
Hmm.
excited about that for like obvious reasons. You know, like putting aside the Woody Harrelson of it all, the Bonnie
Yeah.
Clyde of it all, like it was something that I was very interested in. And 20 minutes in, I'm like, I feel like I gotta do something. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't. I don't know. It's weird.
That's fair.
Like the
Yeah.
reason why I go out to the theater and I see the movies at the theater is because then I feel like I did something or like I don't know, I caught it before everybody else. Like getting to see Birds of Prey before everybody was very exciting. And also I
Yeah.
felt the desire to like catch up on movies that like I don't want to miss them. Like The
Yeah.
Gentleman, like Gretel and Hansel. Films that like didn't fit in with my schedule for me to be able to see 2 movies on a Thursday night, but like I need to see them because I
Yeah.
don't want them to go into this elephant's graveyard where I'll never watch them.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I look, I totally get it. There's tons of movies that I will talk about to the end of my days that I've always meant to watch and probably will never get to. But that's just it for me. Is I realize about myself that if I was going to really, really invest in a movie, I would make the time to invest in it. And that's held true. You know, it started really slow. It started really, literally like maybe I don't buy every DVD at Walmart anymore, right? If I really want to own this movie, I'll buy it. Then it became, I'll only buy movies if they're special editions or like really nice Blu-rays now, right? And so like that's where I'm at with bringing movies into my own home that way. And then with like Netflix and stuff, it's like, oh, my queue has 100 different videos in it. But if I really want to like, if I really want to work down on that queue, I'll work on it because like I'll make the time. Like I will care. And if I don't care, then maybe I don't care about it that much. You know, it's flawed logic, but like it works for me. And man, I'll tell you this, I'm a lot less stressed out than I used to be about making sure that I did all these things.
Yeah, like I think about when I tried to see what's it, 52 movies before like I think it was 104. Like I was trying to get a net average of 100 of 2 movies a week, but
Right.
like before December 1st, so that like in December I wouldn't have to worry about seeing any movies.
Yeah.
And on one Sunday, I went and I saw 2 films, and then I picked up Dale and I drove to that theater that we saw The Interview at
Oh man.
because
Yeah.
it
Okay.
was the only place showing The Homesman, and that was literally the only film currently out that I had not seen.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and I'm like, and it felt weird. Like, there's this weird thing that, like, I used to view it as, like, sort of honor and, like, joy to look at, like, a marquee and be like, I've seen all of those. But now I look at that and it's just like, what a crazy thing you were doing. Like, what are you doing? And like,
Yeah.
I paid to see a movie tonight. I did not use my AMC stubs tonight. And I'm like, this is what you did 3, 4, 5 times a week. You spent this amount of money, and it's like, No wonder. Like, that's where your debt came from, you idiot.
Yeah, man. Well, no, I mean, like everybody's got a hobby that they spend too much money on, man. Like me and the girls, we cook, and like we spend way too much money on like good ingredients and things like that. You know, good alcohol to go and along with our good cooking too. And like, yeah, if we stopped doing that, we'd pull back. But you know, we love it. It's that thing that we
But it's the
enjoy.
stuff that
Like,
gives your life, I don't know, not meaning. Like, a hobby
I
shouldn't
think
be.
I think meaning is a fair way of putting it. Like because it's not all of the meaning in your life, but it is some of the meaning in my life. You know what I mean? Like I am alive to do certain things, and one of those things is eat well and drink well. Like at the end, like I'm not ashamed of that. Like what like
Should he
why
be
should I
ashamed
be?
of that, people? Is
Yeah.
that something he should derive shame
Well,
from?
so like
What are
let's
you
talk about
talking about?
But let's talk about like movies I make an effort to go and see, right? Like this was just this last couple of weeks was Sundance out here. And I have not been like pushing to go out to many movies lately with anybody, but Sundance rolled around and I was suddenly like, we all have to do as much of this as we can. And so sure enough, like got out to see like actually really, really happy this year. What we decided to do was we figured we can still do 2 movies a year because Sundance can be a hassle.
I
You know,
imagine it'd be a bit overwhelming.
well, so we luck out there is an overwhelming aspect to it, but actually we have the really really easy side of it because what they do is Park City, Utah, which is about 40 minutes away, is where the festival is, and that's where like every movie shows just 2 weeks straight. That's where Ron Howard was this past week. Aubrey Plaza gave a talk. Like that's where like the shit went down. Then what they also do for Utah citizens, yeah, that's the right word. It just feels weird, citizen. What they do for Utahns is they actually show a bunch of the stuff in Salt Lake City, so that's only 10 minutes away. And so like they do some special showings for that if they can. Not every artist will come and speak in Salt Lake like they do in Park City because it is further away and it's not Park City. Park City is where like the $80 million mansions are. Like so like there's this really cool like kind of lighter side to it that I get to be a part of. Now that being said, we did get 15 people together this year to try and get to one movie because we ended up actually knowing somebody producing a movie in Sundance this year, which was pretty fucking awesome. Um, Small little student film, about 80 minutes long. Uh, and so the idea was that's going to be one of the movies we go to and we'll have a ton of people here to see it. But then what's something else that we just want to do, like something weird that we can do for us? We looked at a couple of things. Disney had Timmy Failure there, which we didn't get to see there, but now it's up on Disney Plus. So I encourage everybody to check that out because it's a friggin' delight. There was a Kajillionaire, which keep an eye out for if it ever comes out. But it was my dark horse. It's a dark comedy about a family of cons that somehow find themselves with a good amount of cash. I'll leave it at that. But then the other thing was last year we missed all of like the weird artsy like shorts, animated, live action, all of that stuff. So I was like, this year we have to get to at least the animated shorts. So that was the big thing that we went to. We went to about a 2-hour presentation of about I want to say 7 or 8 different animated shorts, and then we did the student film that a friend of ours produced, and it was like the coolest, most Sundance ever. And that's the kind of shit that I'll make an effort to go out and see because it's so much more meaningful to me. You know, like we had the chance to go to the Disney movie, we had a chance to go to the directed comedy with Aubrey Plaza in it, or you know, there's all of this stuff going on in Sundance that people can argue, is this still indie film? Not with these things. Like these were pure indie, and it was so good. And like that's what I'll make the time for. That's what I'll make the money for. That's what I'll make the emotional care for, because holy shit, student film. So the one that we went to, it was called so the English translation is The Black Legend. Leonda Negro, I think, is the full name of it. It's an English language film. It's just that what it is it's about DACA kids, just like Dream Act kids that are losing their privileges. So they're in high school together, and one of them realizes that she's about to get kicked out of the country, and she decides to just like go just fucking whole hog, just vigilante on things, and it gets really dark and it's just beautiful, right? And the best thing about it is being a small indie film is the filmmakers there. The producers are there. The kids that are in the movie are there. And at the time when they made the movie 3 years ago, they were all only like 17. So like it's taken them a while to get things all together, edited and out there. So now they're all in their like 19 and 20s. But like when they made this movie, they had never acted before. They all talked and they were just like, all of these people in the audience were just like, what kind of projects did you do? Were you in theater? Did you do this? And they were like, no, we were kids in this situation and they wanted to make this movie, so they asked us to be in it. Like, and it was amazing, and that is worth it to me for all of the like nonsense that can be around going out to a movie. That kind of shit makes it worth it.
That's true. I like that. That makes me happy to hear. And I will say, missing out on the animated short films presentations for the Oscars, that's something that I miss. Yeah. Because that's a lovely program. They put them together, and then usually because it comes in like under an hour, they'll throw in a couple of extra ones that were like notable or ones that won in years before. So I am jealous that you got to see like an animated short film presentation.
Yeah,
there's still awesome.
Yeah, there's still magic in that, right? Like you were saying before, part of the problem with the Oscars nowadays is the magic is gone, and like it's not with these young filmmakers or these foreign filmmakers that are maybe just trying to break into an American market, or like these guys that are like, I had $10,000 to my name and I spent the entire thing making a 10-minute cartoon. I hope you like it. And it's like, yeah, okay, this was weird, and like you clearly are invested in it, and like you don't get that when you go to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You don't get that shit but
weird example to pull. Because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there was still something magical about it for me.
I feel a lot of the same ways that a lot of other Tarantino fans feel. Not straight up hate it. It's just it really feels like at this point he's just working to 10 so that he can retire.
I get that, and I understand it. I guess that's true. I guess like just because it's magical for me, and it hasn't really been magical for anybody. Which is why I think it felt good that it actually got that nomination, even though by my own admission throughout this entire thing, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah. But I don't know. It means
like that Brad Pitt won for that movie, first Oscar for the man,
Is that really his first Oscar? That's crazy.
Yeah. But I believe it's his first Oscar for acting. I do believe he has one as like a producer on something.
That sounds believable.
But yeah, there's something about going to Sundance, and specifically in Sundance going to the smaller stuff, that really kind of does it for me in a way that the big theaters, the big movie stuff doesn't anymore. So like the Oscars are meh.
Yeah.
I am really proud of Parasite, though. We have not quite mentioned it enough yet, because like
I haven't
seen
that's
it. Awesome.
That's my big issue.
No. Yeah,
if I had seen it, I feel like I'd lavish praise on it. But
yeah, now that it won, I'm hoping that what that means is that it's going to get like second runs and stuff, because like I would really actually like to go and see it, because like horror movies are hard sell on me. Foreign horror movies are a really hard sell on me, and I specifically, he is the kind of filmmaker. How do you say it? Bong Joon? Am I saying that right?
Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah,
something like that.
you gotta get better at this shit. He's a legitimately good filmmaker. Snowpiercer, The Host. What's the other big one that he did? Mother, was that one of his too?
He did Mother, yes. I was trying to think of the name of it because I'm like, I saw it. Like,
yeah. So like I think he's a phenomenal filmmaker. He is always going to be one of those artists that I'm going to have to respect from a distance, because like The Host being the first movie of his that I had ever seen, because everybody lost their mind when that first came out, I think really set the tone for how I was going to kind of like feel about his movies for the rest of it. So like Snowpiercer, by the time you get to Snowpiercer and everybody once again is losing their shit, I couldn't like shake this like uncomfortableness that I had from after watching The Host, which maybe is what he intends, and if that's the case, it's just not the kind of movie for me, you know what I mean? Like, but I can clearly see that he is such a good filmmaker, and to see that kind of filmmaking actually awarded this year was pretty cool.
Yeah, that made me very happy. Especially like what I was excited about was to do the research, and then like the baseball announcers, when there's nothing else going on, they're like, this is the first time that the International Best Picture has also won Best Picture. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, there's that. There's some like 10 hours of research away from me. Like, what? I was going to go deep on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exciting, and they, I mean, the acceptance speech was very, very good, and I like that he got director as well. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like that rarely happens. Like,
It
they
doesn't happen
try to like
enough.
divide it so that everybody
Yeah.
gets a fucking trophy, and
Yeah.
I don't love that. I don't know, and that's I really don't have anything else to say on
Well,
the
it's hard.
Oscars. I'm
No, yeah,
sorry.
no, no, man.
Yeah.
Just like, well, let's do this, Mr. Archivist. Let's transition with a little bit of trivia. How many members of the Academy are there?
738. There's got to be way more than that.
It is a lot more than
Yeah, it's
that.
gonna
You
be
want
like,
to take another swing, or
nah, about 5,600.
closer? 8,000 members. 2016 is when it grew to about that size. So before 2016, you could have very well been right with about the 5,000. But essentially, they made a big push to diversify a few years ago. So more women, more people of color, that sort of thing. But yeah, so 8,000 members in the Academy that made these decisions last night. How often about a movie in particular, like specifically movies, do you feel like you'd probably disagree with 8,000 people in this world?
That's true. That's a
Uh-huh. Yeah. I never more have I felt like that than this week with Birds of Prey.
Oh, what a sweet transition. Wait, do
Yeah,
people
man.
not like Birds of Prey? I
It's
know
not
that it
that
only
people aren't
made
liking it.
$33
No, so
million
like
dollars.
that's the killer, right? So here's the thing. Anybody sitting down to put their ass in a seat to watch that movie is walking away with a smile on their face. Other than a couple of like known tools on the internet that are just like, this is what happens when you put women in charge. It's like, fuck those dudes. But take that subsect out. And essentially what you've got is you've got a critical hit and you've got an audience hit. The problem is you do not have a financial hit. And I don't think that Warner Brothers understands that in the fucking least.
I mean, this is the argument. This is the argument that we have literally been having since day one of the Say report.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so let's lay all the cards on the table to make sure that we're all on the same page about this. So Birds of Prey, saw it, got to see it Wednesday night actually, and I loved it. Like at this point, I am more than comfortable saying that I think it is the best thing that DC and Warner Brothers has done yet.
All right, spoilers. I'm just gonna throw spoilers out there. I think we can avoid them, but I don't want. If you haven't seen Birds of Prey yet, stop what you're doing and go watch it. Like, don't listen further. I hate to say that. I'd love for you to hear us like talk about it, and we're gonna gush. I know I'm gonna gush. I freaking loved it. But like, if you have even a passing interest in the film, go see it, because weirdly, this is a time where it needs your support.
Yeah.
Because all of the shit that they have done at Warner Brothers with the DC movies finally clicked.
Clicked. Yeah.
And I mean, and that means on both things. They finally made a good movie, but also people realized I don't need to see it just because it's a DC thing, and I like Batman. And of course I blame Shazam. I'm always gonna blame Shazam for this movie not doing. I mean, I'm gonna blame Shazam for any issue, because that was the movie that was like, we're gonna try to be funny, because that's what Marvel has that we don't. And people went and saw it, and it didn't work.
Shazam was definitely the final nail in the coffin, but there's a couple of nails before it. I mean, like, I know that we've talked on this show about Aquaman and how there was definitely a lot more enjoyment on the Decker side. Hell, I'll say even on the East Coast side than on my personal side of that movie. But like, I know a lot of people that were like, Aquaman was great, but it didn't make me want to go back to the movies. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those like I'm not sad I saw it for 2 hours, but I have no desire to ever see it again type of movies where that seemed to fall.
On that same thing, I'm there at this point. Like, I don't think I'll ever watch Aquaman at home. I saw it 3 times in theaters.
Right.
I loved all 3 of those times with it, but it's not a movie that, like, at home I'm going to watch.
So, like, you have that 1-2 punch. You have Aquaman come out like that, and then Shazam come out and just drive it to the fucking like anybody that was still holding on to hope after Aquaman lost it with Shazam. Like, that's what I think is the pattern there.
Right, and you also have Justice League prior to that, which, like, they had gotten so much goodwill off of Wonder Woman that people actually went to go see Justice League, and then
There are a
nobody.
lot of people that still think they liked Justice League.
Don't do that. I liked Justice League. I'd watch that again. Like I did watch that again. It was just on cable, and I watched it on cable, which like that indicates something. I had the shitty
I'll wait for the Whedon
commercials.
cut, thank you.
There's no the what the Wheaton cut. I thought you said
Whedon
the
cut.
Keaton cut, and
The
I'm like,
Whedon cut.
how good would it be if Michael Keaton had a cut of Justice League,
But with him as Batman in it.
like just alone at his house,
Just doing all of the scenes.
all the like, they need a leader, and I'm just a man. Yeah, no, it's so it finally wore down on the fan base.
Yeah.
So the people who saw it, I honestly don't know why people went to go see Birds of Prey, and I mean I know why I went, because I saw the trailer before Jexy and said, why is this not being talked about? Why do I have to hear about the Joker every other word, and nobody's talking about this? Because the trailer dropped with Joker, right? I feel like that
I
was
didn't see it with Joker.
Okay.
I'll be honest. I was going to say one of the reasons I think a lot of people haven't gone to see it is because they have not been marketing it at all, and part of that is because it's a hard movie to market. I won't deny that. Like it's an R-rated, like grindhouse style action chick flick. Like it's phenomenal for what it is, but I don't know how you sell that.
I mean, you sell it like Deadpool, and I think that's the unfortunate thing is that they tried to market it like Deadpool, and that didn't, it didn't work. But like, if I were the guy in the marketing thing, I'd be like, well, it's sort of like a Lady Deadpool.
Yeah, but see, they didn't do any of the, and maybe this speaks to just the Ryan Reynolds of it all, but like the idea behind Deadpool marketing is it was all very viral, and a lot of it was happening in places not untraditional, like Ryan Reynolds and Twitter, right? Which led to them eventually for Deadpool 2 creating an entire Twitter account for a character 3 months before anybody knew about the character, which was an amazing piece of marketing. So like, I mean, if we want to talk about Marvel just being more savvy than, Marvel Fox being more savvy than DC and Warner Brothers, sure, let's talk about that.
That's
like
easy.
maybe right.
3,
so
2, 1,
I mean, you can say they tried to market it like Deadpool, but I didn't see any type of like cool, fun. Like there were no Margot Robbie in character videos on Facebook or on
on
what I mean.
TikTok. Like, honestly, just her on TikTok would have probably could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they had done Harley Quinn all depressed about the Joker TikTok videos.
Do you want to know? Okay, let's talk about the marketing for Birds of Prey because I actually have a literal firsthand account of it.
Oh, I'm loving this.
So 2 weeks ago, so 2 months ago, the Warner Brothers DC marketing department reached out to tourist groups in all of the 50 states. I have to imagine that they did this because if they picked just Utah, it's even fucking weirder. But what they did is they said, hey, do you guys have roller derby teams? Because if you do, we want to like set them up with some swag, maybe even like host a night. And so down the line, Hannah's derby team gets a hold of this, and they're like, yes, like you want to come sponsor, and they're like, yeah, and we'll create the marketing for it. We'll give you an exclusive preview to show at your halftime, like all of this shit to set you up for it. And we'll do radio spots and all that sort of shit. And it works out great for the Derby team because they had the most packed house I've ever seen at their match 2 weeks ago when they did this. They did the Harley Quinns versus the Black Masks as the team. Everybody, Derby is always about like a bunch of the like camp of creating your own costumes and stuff. And so they each designed their own costumes for their teams and shit, and it was awesome. And like, so there was a really good amount of marketing for that event. And then suddenly it all went to pot. Like at the end of it, they were like, yeah, we're going to give all the Derby girls all, tickets to go see a free preview on Wednesday. Let me get your name. Oh, I only got like half real names, half Derby names. Some of them aren't even that. How many tickets do you want? Only one per person. Oh, now suddenly that person has 3. It was just crazy, right? And then Wednesday night rolls around. We go to the movie. There's nobody in sight from that like promotion. And we're like, hey, do we have tickets for this or not? Because also you picked a theater that was, no joke, 45 minutes away from the venue in which the game was played, which is fucking ridiculous. Like clearly there's a lot of people on that team that for them it turned into an hour and a half drive because they're from 45 minutes in the other direction. And it was just like you picked the furthest away theater for this. Also on top of that, you didn't show up. They like handed off like the list to somebody else. And keeping in mind what I just said, half the list isn't even real names. So like what are they gonna do? Check IDs? They can't do that, right? Like so all of this shit goes down and like 20 minutes before the movie starts, and there's like a dozen of us standing in line, and we don't even know if we're going to get into the fucking movie. So did we just drive an hour to come to this place, stand in line for an hour, only to find out we actually don't have any tickets put aside? It was fucking miserable. And then, like, on top of all of that, there was really nothing, like there was nothing fun. Like there was no swag, there was no like hype, there was nothing. It was like, hey, security's gonna wand you, we're gonna sit you in this theater, we're gonna make sure that your phone is off, and if we see anybody with a phone, we'll throw you out, was like the attitude that we got when we first showed up.
So you
and it's
went
like,
to like a GoFobo screening. Like it
yeah.
sounds like that's the kind of stuff that like I can just get tickets to if I put my email in.
Exactly. That was the problem, is we were standing there in line surrounded by a bunch of people doing exactly that. And they were like, well, we got our paperwork, so we're going to get tickets. And we were like, fuck, none of us got anything like paperwork. What the fuck is this? So like the marketing side of this movie was just a fucking mess. Like that was it writ large. Was like they showed up one weekend and were like, hey, here's this thing that we know you'll really like. And I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then suddenly they just disappeared. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on with this movie? Like, is this even still coming out? Also, like the weird marketing on it where like they started out talking about Birds of Prey and then suddenly Harley Quinn was going to be in it. And it's like, oh, is Harley Quinn one of the Birds of Prey? And I thought up until the movie that was what was going to happen. But that's not really what happens. Like it's no, like it becomes a very, very, very weird, like, I basically had to cut myself off from anything about that movie before it because I didn't want it to just be destroyed for me.
Oh God, I just got very sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
Because I was reading about the movie after seeing the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and the plan to like do a trilogy, a Harley Quinn trilogy. And the first one is how she brought together the Birds of Prey. The second one was going to be her bringing together the Sirens. And then the third movie was going to be BOP versus Sirens. That's not going to happen. And that makes me sad.
Yeah, right.
But it's not going to happen because Ghostbusters Answer the Call sequel never happened.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the person who's talking to me a year after Answer the Call comes out like, there's going to be a sequel. And I have to be the asshole who's like, no, there's not. Because it wasn't profitable enough. So they cut ties.
Yeah.
And there's no way that like we've seen it. You can listen to our very special episode about Marvel versus DC, and that was before, you know, Infinity War and Endgame came around and became the most profitable superhero movies ever.
Yeah.
And you look at, you know, Warner Brothers.
Didn't they find like an extra billion for that movie somewhere? When they like redid the math on it, they were like, oh, it actually looks like it made like 500 million more.
Yeah. Yeah. It was insane.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that like Warner Brothers was happy because they had jumped on the coattail train and they were still collecting money. But the coattail train has stopped. And as much as we've been talking about Joker, the way that we've been talking about Joker, I would also be very surprised if the success of Todd Phillips' gritty, grimy, you know, Academy Award baity film made them say, we're going to dump all of our money into this.
Yeah. So
any of the marketing that we were going to give to Birds of Prey, it just became for your consideration money.
Yeah, yeah.
And this film that we're dropping first week February, R-rated superhero movie, it'll do what it does.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, consider this. After the Nolan trilogy, everybody was like, oh, well, if this is what DC wants to do, they can do like their like high-end art house, like let the director just kind of make the movie he wants to make for $300 million type movie, where Marvel is going to throw 80 million at fucking Ant-Man and see what happens. Like that's awesome. That'll be diversity in the marketplace, and that'll be fun.
Just because you brought
And
up
then
Ant-Man, that was also the Marvel play for a bit.
Right,
Their plan
right.
was going to be, we let the directors do their own vision, and that's why Edgar Wright's Ant-Man was almost a thing.
But there's a difference. But there's a big difference between $80 million for Edgar Wright to possibly make a silly Ant-Man movie, and Nolan to get $300 to $500 million to do the Dark Knight Rises, right? Like that's where the difference is that like DC Warner Brothers basically was going to make the high class film. Like let's be honest, that was the language, right? They were going to make the high class film while Marvel kept doing the lowbrow stuff. But Marvel going low, it ended up working out real well for them, right?
Oh,
So
it
then
has wide appeal.
so then DC realizes that, and they try and go low. Like they're like, let's bring in the big five, let's give everybody their own movie, and then we'll just start out with fucking Justice League and all that shit, right? Like they tried to do what Marvel did, and it falls apart. So in a weird way, seeing Todd Phillips succeed and that being the way that they kind of want to go back to, I'm totally down for. But if that's the way that they go, people have to understand that the kind of shit that Snyder was trying to do, their Lord and Savior of the fucking DC movie universe, that's not going to fly in that model, right? Like you don't bring in a guy like Snyder to oversee Justice League and then 5 other movies if that's going to be your model for making film. So like I'm kind of okay if that's the way that DC wants to go now, but that means that all of the fanboys that they've built up over the years that have become real fucking hard asses because they've taken so much shit from Marvel fanboys, they're going to lose a lot of those guys.
They already
because
have. I think we've proven that they already have. I think that's what Birds of Prey is demonstrative of, because after Justice League, let's be honest, a lot of their lifeboats were set free from the SSDCEU, and more people were just jumping ship as they got Aquaman, and then Shazam. That's the scene in Titanic where it splits in half.
Well, then I'm officially putting a moratorium on any of these fucking like Snyder apologists talking about how what ruined that Joss Whedon ruined basically the DC movie universe, because like if they honestly felt that way, where has their support been for these films? Like they where have they been to be like, no, here's my money to prove that this is a viable way of making money, like movies. Because I feel like for all of the talk that I have heard over the last 5 or 6 years about how DC's really doing something, I just don't see it. Like I'm curious where that talk is today after my favorite now, like the one good DC movie I feel like that has come out in the last 5 years. Like where are they now?
Yeah, I don't know. And that's the real issue. But that's it. It has to be that. It has to be the fact that all of these people who are spreading goodwill and preaching the gospel of Snyder, they're gone. And that's why a movie like Birds of Prey does what it does. And it's disappointing, because if those same people were there in the fervor, in the what box office mojo is trying to poison the well, and they say this so that we don't go see it, like all of those crazy conspiracy theories that I had to sit through and be like, no, because they just want to make money. Yeah. And I know that like sucks because you actually care about this, but as long as Warner Brothers is making money, they don't care that Leonard Maltin didn't like Superman Lives or whatever it was fucking called.
Yeah.
Man of Steel. Like,
I think what it is and why I'm feeling a little bit indignant is I have always said that while I do not enjoy the direction of a lot of DC projects, I will always give them my money as an opportunity to prove me wrong. And I've stood by that.
You've stood by that.
Meanwhile, I have listened to guys that have been like, I'm never going to another Marvel movie again. It's DC all the way for me. And like that's that thing that like I feel like it's emblematic of how they handle the franchises, Marvel versus DC, or in this case, Disney versus Warner Brothers, because we are talking about specifically the movie sides of these things, is that like they were always willing to throw money behind it as long as money came in. Whereas Disney Marvel was always willing to throw money behind something, because even if it didn't bring money in now, they knew that they meant that they were building faith with the fan base and trust with the fan base. So like, yeah, okay, we're not going to make fucking $1.5 billion on every Marvel movie, but we're gonna make $1.5 billion on at least two or three of them. So why don't we throw $80 million here and $100 million there, and oh, let's give $300 million to this Black Panther movie just because that seems like a good investment. Like, hey, smart shit, right? It's all business, it's all bullshit, capitalism. But like, there's this sensibility with Marvel that they at least like me, despite the fact that I know they're using me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they buy
I
you
don't know.
dinner first.
Yeah, and like the one
there's
time,
nothing better to demonstrate that than like the big kazoo whoopee is these Avenger crossover movies,
yeah,
and the dates leading up to it are the Black Panthers and the Ant-Mans and the Doctor Stranges to
yeah,
let you know I care about you. Look, I bought you a cardigan.
yeah. Like it's this weird sensibility that like really comes forward because when they finally do, I feel like make a movie where they were considering me, like as a fan that like I've always said that Suicide Squad was a halfway decent film and would have been fully decent if they did A, B, and C with Harley Quinn. And then like they did A, B, and C in this movie. So like they basically heard everything that I had to say about Suicide Squad and they were like, "Oh, okay, so let's actually make this one a little bit better." And they did and like knocked it out of the fucking park. And so it's just it what lesson have they learned here? I don't know. Like it's really weird. It's just like this machination of just like bullshit that has come to fruition. This like the idea of Birds of Prey failing financially is just upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have nothing to add to it. It disappoints me on so many levels because this was the first time in a long time that I was excited on my way to go see a DC film. And
Hmm.
not that I was one of these, like, I'm going to do it. I was seeing them because I see movies. It's what I do.
Yeah.
But, like, Aquaman, I didn't think I'd like Aquaman half as much as I liked Aquaman. Ditto Justice League. This is the first time that I went into the movie with any level of excitement or anticipation. And usually in that scenario, I get burned. Like in the world that usually happens, this episode of the Say Report is me saying Birds of Prey was awful, and here's several reasons why.
Yeah, yeah, right. In every other instance but one.
But right,
Yeah.
it's because like I've been hurt by them before. So
Yeah.
the fact that just the marketing that I got, which was one trailer before Jexy of all things, like that was enough for me to be like, I'm on board.
Yeah.
But you're not wrong because I saw people talking and they're like, besides Harley Quinn, I don't know anybody who's in Birds of Prey. And my response is like, oh, it's Cassie Kane, it's Renee Montoya, it's the Huntress, and it's Black Canary. And they're like, no, you don't know that. And I'm like, no, I do because I watched the trailer and I have more than a passing knowledge of DC characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, which I don't know. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And it bums me out. Like I was living in this happy little bubble where like everybody has to love this movie, and like you said, everybody who's seen it is generally.
Yeah, they do. No, they do. They like there is a more than general consensus that this is a good one, guys. Like it's fun. It's actually like the big thing for me about Birds of Prey is it was the Winter Soldier moment that I've been waiting for in the DC movies. Winter Soldier was the first Marvel movie where I sat down and thought, you don't need to know anything else about this universe. You don't need to know anything about superheroes at all. If you sit down and watch this movie, it is still good because it's a fantastic spy thriller. It's well paced. It's got three like very perfect acts. Like Winter Soldier just has always been my example of just Marvel being able to make a movie that elevates itself beyond the genre. And DC's never had that. They just plain and simple have never been able to pull off a movie like that without having to like so far remove it from the comic that you don't even recognize it. Maybe I mean like it just doesn't exist. And so this was the first time where I sat down and at the end of that movie I was like, that was awesome. Like it reminded me of Smoking Aces and fucking like Shoot 'em Up, like that style of like neo grindhouse where it's super gory, but there's also like real intelligence behind the dumb humor in it. Like I mean, Deadpool is not a terrible counter to it, I have fundamental issues with that comparison because I think there's some things that Birds of Prey grounds itself in that Deadpool firmly does not, and also like the idea that Harley Quinn can exist on her own. She does not have to constantly be compared to Deadpool. I also have feelings about that, but from a filmmaking standpoint in terms of like how to deal with adolescent humor in an intelligent way, and from a filmmaking standpoint in terms of like how to take this character and how to take them seriously in some moments and not in others. It's like it's a masterclass in that. It's so good. It is just really well done.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I only bring up Deadpool. I just want to say that because it is the line standard for the
Oh,
R-rated superhero film.
hmm. Oh, I think when I came out of the movie the other night, I heard a girl say this is definitely DC's answer to Deadpool, and I don't think they're entirely wrong about the character. I don't think the movie is because, as I said, the movie grounds itself in much more of a reality than Deadpool does because Deadpool is so much a movie that exists in Deadpool's own head, which is always the case with him. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
but if we
yeah,
remove the Deadpool of it, if we take out the Ryan Reynolds factor, God,
uh-huh.
I feel like a fucking asshole right now, and I'm sorry to do this. The structure of Birds of Prey and Deadpool is almost this exact same, with the time jumps and the delineation and the way that the actual narrative is delivered to the audience. I really do think on a fundamental level, again, removing the Deadpool of the whole thing, removing the like insanity that is that character from it, I
Hmm.
would be very surprised if there wasn't some marketing room at Warner Brothers that said this is what we need to follow.
Oh yeah.
We
I
need
mean,
to look at
scripts.
this movie, this script structure, and rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, scripts go through so many iterations and versions that at least a handful of writers that got their hands on the Birds of Prey script were told make it more like Deadpool. Like I don't doubt that, but I think
It
I
elevates above, and you're
right.
right.
I think
It
it comes out
elevates
ahead.
above for the reason that DC films have always elevated above, which is that grounding in reality.
Hmm.
Which right now that's what DC has going for it.
Yeah.
Even though they make movies like fucking Justice League where there are parademons and the grounding in reality is one random Russian family.
Yeah.
Like it's
Hey man,
still
I mean you're speaking my language. I have always and will forever say that my favorite DC hero is Commissioner Gordon because he is a man among titans, right? Like that's just and I love that archetype. And I mean, so in this movie you're talking about Montoya and she's like and like there's this anchor that they create to the real world that like you just cannot deny. And like it is what makes DC have its own flavor. I won't say it's better or worse than a Marvel story, but it's what gives a in Marvel, the heroes themselves are part human, right? Like look at like fucking Clint, like as Hawkeye. Perfect example of that dude that is just a guy going to work. He happens to have some pretty innate like super abilities depending on what who's writing him. They could be straight up super like
he's a pretty
but at
good
the end of the
archer.
day but at the end of the day he is just this fucking dude who's just trying to survive in the city, right? Like that is like the heart of a good Hawkeye story. That's not the case, right? With like your Batman or your or to get a better comparison, Green Arrow, right? Like it's just not the case with Oliver Queen, right? But you give Oliver Queen that guy around him, his sorry, what's his butler's name there? His Dig, right? Like you give him his John Diggle, and that's the guy, right? Like, and although you talk about the Arrowverse show, and that goes in a whole other direction, but like,
Yeah.
but in the comics, right? Like that is his anchor to reality is another person as opposed to something flawed within himself, right? And that is the fundamental difference between Marvel and DC. So when you make these DC movies, like you really do need to play up those characters because they are so important, at least to me. So like Montoya and this is perfect. I'll even give it to Amy Adams as Lois Lane in the Superman movies, like her being the anchor for Clark, as she often is. She's great. Like that particular version of Lois Lane is one of the better ones for sure.
Yeah,
So
and I
like,
mean, I'll even give it to Jeremy London as Alfred in the
mhm.
two with Batman, like
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he's the grounding for that character. and
Jeremy Irons?
Jeremy Irons, Jeremy London. Who's
Jeremy London. I
oh?
mean,
Is that
we can talk about Jeremy London too if you want.
wait? Yeah, let's ski. What the fuck? Out cold. Is that him?
Yeah.
That's
No, that might be his brother.
They're the same, and they're all related to Brendan Fraser. They're triplets. Not really. I don't believe that. It's just a fun theory. A game theory? I'm sorry. We're gonna get sued for what I just did. But yeah, that grounding, and that's why I know you haven't seen Crisis yet, right? You haven't. I don't know if you're ever going to. And actually,
you know that I watch things as full chunks as they come out on like Netflix, as opposed to week to week.
The fact of the matter is, you're never going to get to watch Crisis, and that upsets me on this severe level. And it's just because Batwoman is never going to be in the same area as the other ones because of the streaming deals that the other four have, and like that breaks my heart because I will fight to the death. And when you see it, I'm sure we'll actually have this discussion that the Batwoman part, it's part 2 of Crisis, is the best episode of it because of exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. Because of the grounding in humanity of something so completely bonkers going on.
Right.
Like it all happens in that episode. It's the only episode that you see them out of costume. Literally, in all 5 episodes, it's the only one that they're out of costume. And one of the only reasons that heroes get out of costume is so they can interact with their freaking human grounding.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you need that. You need that for this to mean anything. For there to be stakes, for it to matter. Sorry, I'm mad about Birds of Prey. I'm really mad about Birds of Prey.
You know what? I'm not though, because at the end of the day, the movie got made. I got to see it. I'm gonna go see it again, and it's not gonna not exist.
Yeah, that's
like
I guess I'm mad that
no, I get it. No, like I am upset as well. But I'm at that point, and this kind of wraps back to everything that we've talked about in this episode. Is I'm at this point where I'm not going to allow myself to get so emotionally invested in the zeitgeist that it does actually like affect me.
That it has an effect on you.
Yeah, because as somebody that had that happen to them when they were much younger and lived that life, like that was fun. I won't ever say that I was wrong to do it in those times. I just don't got it anymore, man. I just don't got it in me. Where I'm at right now is I love the fuck out of that movie.
Yeah, and I do too. You know how many times I almost saw it again this weekend?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, granted, if I went to the theater closer to me still, yeah, I would have. But last night I'm like, oh, we go see the 9 o'clock, and I'm like, no, I won't get there in time. I'll get there at 9:16, and like maybe there's a lot of trailers before it, but if I miss 1 second of Birds of Prey, I will be doing it a disservice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we talk about the zeitgeist and not letting it run your life, because we're still gonna talk about it even if our third man is not available, right? I've been calling him our dick, and I feel like that's rude because it makes one of us Barry and one of us Rob. And I mean, let's face it, we're the Barry and the Rob in this relationship.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I'm sorry. One of us is Jack Black and one of us is John Cusack. I don't want to be the one to choose. But the fact that I don't want to be the one to choose, I think we know which one that makes me. Fuck. Anywho, we're going to be talking about sort of that whole dangerous nature of living for the zeitgeist or living through your hobbies and not through yourself on next week's episode of the Say Report, because Hulu is coming out with a television adaptation of Nick Hornsby's High Fidelity.
Yeah, man. And like, have we not talked about this yet on the show? I guess that's where I'm thrown, is I thought we'd already talked about it.
No, we really haven't. Okay. No, we've talked about it at length because
so the three Musketeers here, like we each kind of hit this fan base, I guess I'll call it, in like 3 different ways. I'm not as big of a fan of this sort of stuff. Devin used to be, or
I hate
is
it.
at least
I've never liked it.
but he hate watches the fuck out of it apparently.
But
and like
it's one of those things where we'll go deeper in it, but I bought the book as my hurry up and wait book in college, and like I just always had it with me to read in college, and that was like a bad choice. Like it was a mistake. And then I'm like, oh, but I'll watch the movie. The movie's got to be better than the book. It's got John Cusack. No, it's not.
Yeah, well, and so we're going to talk about it.
We're going to talk
moral
about
of the story. I don't want to go.
Yeah, we don't want to go any further than that. Yeah, because Will's not here, and Will is going to be here. We're going to have him here as that third voice, because he's the one who brought it to my attention. Because he and I have had more than enough conversations about high fidelity and what it means. And the fact that it's 20 years later is crazy. So you think like it's 5 years from book to movie and then 20 years to this television adaptation. And we're going to go deep on it. And it's going to be a lot of the stuff that we touched on this week about not living for the zeitgeist. At least I feel like that's going to be part of it. Maybe I'm crazy. Siegen,
yeah, man. Well, we're gonna touch on it and talk about it, and I'm curious to hear how things have maybe changed for you about it. I think part of the reason that I am so wary of this story is I do feel a lot of weird personal connections to like Nick Hornby stories in general. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about. But the reason why we're bringing it up now and having this terrible teaser, because that's what this is the Hulu series is going to drop on Friday. So if you want to make sure that you are caught up on everything,
there we go. Yeah, get in on that shit.
Definitely watch a couple episodes of it. I know I'll have watched all 10 because I watched the trailer and I cried and I'm like, why? Why does this matter to me? And I have two best friends and a podcast and we're going to talk about it. So anything to add regarding this week's episode or anything else that you want to say, Siegen?
What happened this week? The 2 weeks, Sundance, Oscars, Birds of Prey. Yeah, no, that was everything.
See The Gentleman. That's what I want to say. The Gentleman was awesome. Cool. And I don't know if I've gotten enough chance. Like, I don't think we've recorded for me to tell you to go see The Gentleman. It is better than you think it's going to be if you've only seen trailers.
Cool. Excellent.
That's great. And Rhythm Section is doing really bad, and that makes me sad. And it wasn't a great movie, and I'm not saying rush out and see it, but if you catch it on cable, check it out. It's got some cool stuff in it, even though it's not the cleanest execution of that story. And Blake Lively, man, right? We talked about Ryan Reynolds forever in an episode about Birds of Prey. We got to give Blake Lively some love.
Yeah.
God, Birds of Prey was so good. I'm not going to be disappointed. I'm not going to let the fact that it's not making money upset me. And I'm still going to hold out hope that they do a Sirens movie because it's Margot Robbie who's spending the money. And I don't think she cares.
And like, I walked out of that movie the other night saying, if the next one is not Harley and Ivy, what are they doing? Like, the next movie has to be her. And Sirens is perfect for that. Like, do Harley Ivy and bring Catwoman into it. Like, I'm down. Let's do it. Let's do a new Catwoman.
Yeah, it'd be great. And it's fine. And we're gonna let the Joker live in his world. Let the ladies live in theirs.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that's it. And I'm sorry. So if you'd like to say anything about anything that we talked about on this episode, you can find us on Twitter at the Say Report. If you want to find me personally, I am at Devin D. Decker.
And if you want to tweet at me about the obvious homosexual undertones of Black Mask and Zaz, you can hit me up at Siege versus the World.
I so badly wanted to talk about that. All right, we're doing a little bit. I read him as bisexual.
Who?
Roman Sionis.
I don't even think he's bisexual.
You think he's straight homosexual?
No. I don't think it's a sexuality thing. It's an ownership thing. It's the same idea as like it's the same language and mentality that you hear about dudes in prison when they talk about how they did what they did because they were just going to get what they wanted. And it's that idea that it is a you belong to me thing. I do believe that their relationship is the reason that he gets kicked out of the family, but that's all subtext in that movie. That is like nothing that is actually like brought to the forefront. But once you learn everything you learn in that movie about who everybody is in the story, it became instantly clear to me that the reason that Roman gets kicked out of his family is because of that possible relationship.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess the ownership thing is a really good way to look at it. Because someone was like, I can't believe they made him gay. And I was reading that, and I'm just like, I don't know why you're upset about that. Like, it brought great depth to a character who's already awesome. I'm a huge fan of the Black Mask.
Zaz could possibly be gay. That's another conversation. I mean, the thing about Zaz is he's so broken that I don't even think you can talk about him in terms like this either. But the thing for Roman Sionis is I don't think it matters to him. I don't think sexuality or gender matters to him. He wants to own everything, which is pure Black Mask as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and that's why it was so good. And then perfect. Yeah, I'm glad that we had this talk because I wanted to find a way to get this in, but then I got depressed about Birds of Prey not making enough money for there to maybe be a sequel. But again, that's stupid because go see it. I'm going to go see it again. Siegen's going to go see it again. See Birds of Prey. Talk to us. Talk to everybody. Will stop me from talking. Have a good night, folks.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.